Good morning. It's great to see all of you this morning. I hope you're as excited to see me as I am to see you. So today we are going to start the process of classifying your brand new organism. Congratulations, by the way, on some very creative organisms. So you, the scientists, have discovered this brand new organism. Now you have to convince the scientific community that it is indeed a new organism and should be accepted as such. The first step in that process is to classify your organism through the binomial nomenclature process. Bi means two, nomial means name. So binomial is to name. Nomenclature is the naming process. So binomial nomenclature is just this big science word for names that have two names. You have two names. I have two names. Some of us have three. Some people have four. But organisms have two names. They have their genus name, which is capitalized, and their species name, which is not capitalized. So their genus name is really like their last name, but it comes first. And then their species name is kind of like their first name, but it comes second, and it's not capitalized. So there is this classification process that has 7 levels: domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Now, I have a really cool song for you. I'm not sure if it will play the way that I want it to, so you can hear it, but hopefully it will.
Every state. But what I love about
But we don't want to listen to her talk. Oh. This is not the song that I wanted.
So every living thing is sorted in 7 major levels, seven, and at the top, starting right, specific at the bottom, the domain, right is right, it stop.
Come on, dance party!
And phylum, class, order, then the genus and the species that we know. In phylum, class, order, then the genus and the species now.
Okay, we can only take so much of that. That is not the song I was looking for. That is sad. Let me see. It has the same graphics, but it's not the one. Let me see if this is it.
If you want to sell online.
No, I do not want to sell online, but thank you for the offer. Yep, but not the one. I'm going to have to look back in my stuff and find it, because the one that I want says domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, last. It's important that you know these and you know them in the correct order, and that song really helps. So I will search for it and hopefully be able to add it to your Schoology link today. However, back to the task at hand. This gets tricky for you with your species, and I really hate that we are not in person to do this. So you start out very broad. There are 2 domains. There are prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Way back last semester, we talked about the types of cells. We talked about prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. Eukaryotic cells have cell membranes and nuclear membranes and mitochondria and a defined nucleus, an endoplasmic reticulum, and all of these membrane-bound organelles. Prokaryotic cells do not have those things. Bacteria are prokaryotes. Everything else is a eukaryote. Okay, so those are the two possible kingdoms. The two possible domains, prokaryotes and eukaryotes, which are essentially bacteria and not bacteria. Okay, so most, if not all of the organisms I have seen so far are all eukaryotes. They're all organisms that are not bacteria, which means they fall under the eukaryote domain. Then, once you determine which type of domain your organism is a part of, those domains are broken down into kingdoms. Now, the number of kingdoms have changed over time, but right now, I believe there are 6 of them. There's Plantae, which is the Latin word for plants. Animalia, you guessed it, the Latin word for animals. And then you have the 2 P's. Then you have the 2 bacteria. You have the Archaebacteria and the Eubacteria. Remember, those are going to be under the prokaryote domain. Everything else is under the eukaryote domain. So your 2 types of bacteria, Archaebacteria and Eubacteria, those fall under the domain prokaryotes. Now your eukaryotes include the Plantae, plants, Animalia, animals, and then the 2 weird ones that we really don't talk about a lot until 7th grade, which includes fungi, which are different types of funguses, and protists. Protists are usually teeny tiny microscopic organisms that are really kind of cool. So if you ever have had the opportunity to look at some pond scum under the microscope, most of the things you are seeing under that microscope are protists. So, Archaebacteria, Eubacteria, under the domain of prokaryotes. Then you have Plantae, Animalia, which are the 2 simple ones for us. It's a plant or an animal. Fungi, which includes mushrooms and molds, and protists. Protists are those little microscopic critters that you see usually in a very liquid environment. So in water, in the muddy, mucky, dirty mud at the bottom of a pond, that's where those organisms are going to exist. So those are your 6 kingdoms. So your next step is to determine which of those kingdoms does your organism best fit in. Most of the organisms I have seen are going to be in the kingdom Animalia. Some are going to be in the kingdom Plantae. Now, some are a cross between a plant and an animal, and you, as the scientists, make the decision of which one they fit in more. And that's where the process gets tricky. Because your organism is not one that actually exists in this world, you are going to have to make some determinations as a scientist. So you are going to go through this process and determine what domain, what kingdom, what phylum, what class, what order, and what family your organism belongs in. Now, the further you move down, the harder it gets, because the more specific each category gets. And then you get to genus, and really you just got to pick one. When you get to that point, you just choose one. Species is the name that you get to create yourself. Now, this is a single word name for your organism. One word. And it's usually kind of Latin-y, because all of these science classification words are Latin words. Many scientists will name their organism after themselves. So my species could be Parsons or Parsonus or Amberus. That sounds weird, but you get the idea. Of course, you could name it after a scientific mentor that you once had in 7th grade science, but you get to choose the species name. Now, how do you find these names? How do you figure this out? Well, Google, my friend. So you're going to go to a Google search page. And as we have established, there are 2 domains. And you need to specify when you're searching domains in scientific classification. There are 2 domains. Taxonomy is another term used for the classification of organisms. Now see, this article has already science has changed. They have broken it down into 3 separate domains, which means the 2 different types of bacteria have divided into their own domain. OMG. So your possible domains are archaea. Archaea domain, those are organisms that exist in extreme conditions. Bacteria, we just talked about. A lot of illnesses are caused by bacteria, but not all bacteria is bad. There's some good bacteria that helps you digest your food, and so forth. And then eukarya. This is where most of your organisms are. These are the organisms that have defined nuclei and mitochondria and all of those membrane-bound organelles. So all of you will have eukarya as your domain. I don't think anyone has developed a bacteria as their organism. So you have your domain. What do you do next? What comes after domain? You got it, the kingdom. So now you have to choose which kingdom. Again, if you have forgotten the possibility of kingdoms, then all you have to do is search for kingdoms in the domain and choose the domain. So kingdoms in the domain eukarya. There are 4 kingdoms in the domain eukarya. Let's find something that lists right here. Fungi, Animalia, Plantae. Ooh. Those go a little more in detail than we need. How does it say? Here, let's try this. 4 kingdoms in the domain eukarya. First, you have Protista, which are single-celled or multicellular organisms that are microscopic. Okay? Next, fungi. Fungi are going to be your molds and mushrooms. Cheater, pumpkin eater. There we go. Then you have Animalia, which are animals, and Plantae, which are plants. You are going to use Google to classify your organism, and you as the scientist make the decisions. Which of these 4 does your organism fall under? Now, most of you created animals. So that is going to be your kingdom, Animalia. So next is phylum. Now, phylum is singular, phyla is plural. So we are going to search phyla in the kingdom, Animalia. So apparently there are 10 phyla that fall under that kingdom, and here they are. Of course, you need to know more about these in order to determine which one your organism actually falls under. So we're going to click on the link. Here we go. Phylum Proifera. No, I do not want to book a free class. Thank you. Phylum Nidaria. Phylum Plathominthes. I've never been able to say that. That's flatworms. Nematoda. Annelida. Arthropoda. If you have bugs, this is what phylum those are going to be under. Mollusca. If you have shellfish like clams, oysters, snails, this is what phylum that is going to fall under. I'm not even going to try to say that one. This includes like starfish, sand dollars, those types of things. But right here is where most of you are going to fall. Phylum Chordata. Under the phylum Chordata, if your organism has a spinal cord, basically, if your organism has a backbone, a spine, and a spinal cord, this is where it's going to fall. This includes most fish as well. So what do we do next? You guessed it. We are going to go back to Google. We have determined phylum Chordata. Next is class. So you're going to go back to your Google search. And you're going to search for classes in the phylum Chordata. Now, if your organism was in a different phylum, obviously you're going to search for the classes within that particular phylum. So when we get to classes in the phylum Chordata, there are 5 classes. You have amphibia, which are amphibians, reptilia, which are reptiles, mammalia, guessed it, mammals, fish, and birds. So this one's pretty simple, but this is where it gets tricky for some of you because you have a combination of organisms. Some of you combined a bird with a cow and maybe a snake. Okay, so you obviously have a mammal, a bird, and a reptile. You have to decide which category your organism is most like. Again, you are the scientist, you make the decision. Let's say that we chose birds. So our class is bird. Our next step is to find the orders in the class bird. Go back to handy dandy Google. Orders in the class birds. Now, sometimes when you have normal words like this that can mean multiple things depending on what you're talking about, it helps to put in scientific classification. And that just helps to narrow that search for exactly what you're looking for. So you have your class Aves, which is birds. It tells you your possible orders here. Of course, look right here. It says 48 more rows. So we're going to open this up. Now you see all of these possible orders for birds. You're going to pick one. See, it tells you the types of birds. Is your bird more like a crane? Is your bird more like a loon or a falcon or a cuckoo bird or a kingfisher? You have to decide that. You as the scientist make that decision. And this particular website, I think if you click on the order you choose, then it will give you the possible families. This makes life easy. Then you choose the family. Guess what it's going to give you? The possible genuses. Now look at all of those. Again, when you get to the family and the genus levels, a lot of times you just have to pick one, whichever one you think best represents your organism. And then, of course, the species you make up all by yourself. Now, if you are not fortunate enough to run into one of these websites who has the classification linked in this way, you just simply go back to Google and you search for families in the order and put the order that you chose. And then you put genus you put genus in the family and then what family you chose. And that's going to give you your options. So what are you going to do with all of this information? Why, you're going to go back to your handy dandy new species report. You're going to access that through your Google Drive because yesterday you started adding to this report. So you're going to go to your Google Drive, pull up your new species report. Yesterday, you completed the name of the scientist and the title of the scientist. C, you are going to do last. That is the last thing you are going to do today. You have to complete your classification before you can do letter C. However, don't forget this one right here, common name. So, for instance, humans, their scientific classification name is Homo sapien. But we don't call ourselves Homo sapien. We call ourselves humans or people. Those are the common names. So dog is the common name for dog, but their genus species name is canine blah, 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 depending on which species it is, okay? So you need to choose the common name for your organism. It might be the flutterby or the swirly whirly popcorn flower. That is what normal people are going to call it. Okay, that is different from the proposed scientific name. Don't forget to fill in your common name. Notice there is not a spot for the domain here. You're going to go straight to kingdom. Kingdom again is Plantae, Animalia, Fungi, Protista, Archaebacteria, or Eubacteria. Okay? Then you will determine which phylum, which class, which order, which family, which genus, and then you choose the species name. Remember, the species name can only be one word, but it can be a completely made up word. Once you have completed letter D, then you can go back up. Letter C is a combination of the genus and species. The genus name is capitalized. The species name is not capitalized. So that is where you get your proposed scientific name for your organism. You simply copy the genus name and make sure it has a capital letter at the beginning. Put a space and copy the species name and make sure it is not capitalized. That's it. That is your work for today and tomorrow. By the end of the day tomorrow, you should have your classification finished, your common name in place, and your proposed scientific name. I hope you have a fun time with this. I hope you've enjoyed being creative with your organisms. I have enjoyed looking at them for those of you who have turned them in. I can't wait to have you back here in school. So good luck on this assignment. If you have questions, feel free to message me through Schoology, and I hope you have a great day.